She wasn't what anyone expected. Standing at 5'4", with a wiry frame, and the kind of face that people would pass on the street without a second glance, Evelyn Hart didn't exactly scream elite soldier. She wasn't loud. She wasn't aggressive. She wasn't born into a military family or driven by any revenge fantasy. She was just focused. Quietly, almost stubbornly so. She grew up in a small town in Arkansas, where most folks thought big dreams belonged to other places. Evelyn had only one obsession since she was 12 years old: shooting. Not for the thrill, not for sport, not even for hunting. For her, precision was peace. Hitting the target was the only moment the world fell silent and made sense. Her father, a mechanic, would take her to the range on weekends. At first, just to keep her company. But soon, she was out shooting the older boys, including her own brother. By 16, she was known across 3 counties. By 18, she broke state records for long-range precision shooting with an old Remington she'd saved up for. The Army was the logical next step. Not because she wanted to fight, but because she wanted to be tested, pushed, proved. Basic training didn't rattle her. She didn't need pep talks or sleep or recognition. She just needed the challenge. And she passed everything they threw at her with a kind of quiet fury. But Delta Force, that was different. That was the mountaintop. They laughed when she applied. Not to her face, of course. But she felt it. Saw it in the glances between the instructors, the smirks of the other candidates. Mostly men, taller, louder, heavier. "You sure you know what you're getting into?" one of them asked during the pre-screening phase. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her record spoke for her: expert marksman, perfect fitness scores, spotless discipline. But Delta Force was more than that. It was endurance, pain tolerance, mental survival. It was the best of the best. And Evelyn, she was just a girl from Arkansas who could shoot real good. She made it through the first day. Then the second. Then the 5th. The rucksacks got heavier. The terrain crueler. The food scarcer. The instructors meaner. One of them, Captain Myers, made it his mission to break her. "Delta's not for delicate hands," he told her during a night march. "Why don't you go sign up for a desk job?" She ignored him. That only made him angrier. They pushed her further. Longer runs, colder swims, less sleep. At night, she'd curl up against her pack in the mud, listening to the breath of those who were ready to quit. She could hear it. Quitting had a sound. A kind of shallow, defeated breathing. But not her. Evelyn breathed steady. Like a sniper in a hide. By week 3, 12 candidates dropped. Evelyn stayed. Her boots were soaked through. Her knees were bleeding. Her lips cracked and blue. But she didn't complain. That irritated Myers more than anything else. "No emotion," he told the other instructors. "She doesn't crack. That's not normal." On the 4th week, she was pulled from the line. Without explanation. No final test. No ceremony. Just a handshake from a quiet sergeant major who said, "You did well, Hart. But this isn't the path for you." No details. No specifics. Just a rejection, polite and final. She nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't ask why. She went back to her barracks. Packed her things. Left Fort Bragg that same day. And that should have been the end of her story. But Evelyn didn't see it that way. She didn't post about it. Didn't rant. Didn't call in favors. She went home. Back to Arkansas. And she waited. Waited until the burn of rejection turned into something sharper. Clarity. They hadn't rejected her because she failed. They rejected her because she didn't fit their mold. Too quiet. Too unshakable. Too different. So she made a plan. For 6 months, she trained in silence. She ran in the woods before dawn. Weighted packs, ice baths, no social media, no distractions. She took work as a farmhand during the day and practiced long-range shooting at a private range she built herself at night. Bought an old decommissioned military truck and retrofitted it as a mobile training center. Not flashy. Just efficient. And she signed up for every open sharpshooting competition in the Midwest. Local, regional, military, civilian. Didn't matter. One after another. And she won. Quietly. Relentlessly. In fields where no one expected her to win, she walked away with records. They started calling her the Phantom. She never gave interviews. Never posed for photos. Just collected medals and disappeared. Word reached the Army again. This time, they noticed. When the Department of Defense launched a pilot program to test elite marksmanship candidates for a new International Special Forces task group, her name showed up again. Not submitted by herself, but by the director of the program who had reviewed her scores. At first, they dismissed it. "We've been through this," said a senior officer. "She's not a good fit for team operations." But the program lead, Commander Rivera, insisted. "She doesn't need to talk. She needs a target. Let her try." So she was invited. No promises. No ranks. Just an invitation to the selection course. And Evelyn accepted. This time, there were no illusions. No dreams of fitting in. No need to be liked. Just a shot. The selection course was brutal. It was held in the Nevada desert. 40 candidates. All experienced operators. All male. All underestimated her. They gave her the worst equipment. The heaviest pack. The poorest position in the barracks. On day 2, one candidate sabotaged her hydration bladder. She didn't report it. Just drank from a puddle after filtering the water with her sock. They watched her do it and shook their heads. Freak. Robot. She didn't respond. By the 3rd week, only 15 candidates remained. Evelyn was one of them. She hadn't just survived. She'd outscored every single one of them in navigation, obstacle clearance, and land evasion. Then came the sharpshooting trial. The final test. It wasn't a simple range. It was a dynamic, moving target field built across 5 square miles of canyon terrain. Each shooter had to complete 50 hits on moving targets from different elevations, all under extreme time pressure and physical exhaustion. The current record was held by a Marine named Dawson, 48 hits in 33 minutes. Evelyn went last. No music. No cheers. Just silence as she loaded her gear. A custom-built DMR she'd tuned herself. Lightweight. Balanced. The clock started. She didn't sprint. She walked. Measured. Each breath synced with each shot. Wind shifts. Calculated. Angles. Second nature. Targets moved fast. Some rolled. Some popped up. Some spun. She hit 50. Then kept going. Her final tally, 62 hits in 29 minutes. A new record. The watching officers were stunned. Rivera stood up. The others just looked at each other. "She didn't miss," one said. "She didn't even blink." Myers was there too. He didn't speak. He just watched her walk off the field, rifle still warm, hand steady. The selection board had no choice. Evelyn wasn't just accepted. She was assigned as lead precision shooter for the elite task unit. No more doubts. No more smirks. They called her Deadeye. But she didn't care for the nickname. She was still just Evelyn Hart. From Arkansas. The quiet girl who refused to break. They gave her a team. Small, sharp, and skeptical. The unit was called Viper 1, and it operated under the radar, a joint force Black Ops team formed for rapid response and surgical strikes in high-value conflict zones. Evelyn wasn't the only specialist. There was Briggs, an explosives expert with a reputation for improvising on the fly. Navarro, an intel ghost who spoke 6 languages and had been undercover so long his real name was classified. And then there was Major Thorne, team lead, hardened by 20 years of field missions, and utterly unimpressed by reputation. Thorne met her without ceremony. "You shoot. That's all I care about. Don't screw up." Evelyn nodded. She didn't expect more. The first mission came quick. An arms-dealing syndicate operating in the highlands of Georgia, old Soviet bunkers, tight canyons, and a convoy scheduled to meet with rogue militias. The team had one shot to intercept before those weapons disappeared into the hands of warlords. The plan was simple on paper. Evelyn would provide overwatch from a cliff 3 clicks north. High angle, shifting winds, late dusk. She ran calculations as they flew in, adjusting in her mind for barometric pressure and terrain distortion. No one spoke to her much. Briggs cracked jokes. Navarro muttered codes. Thorne gave orders. And Evelyn sat quietly, absorbing everything. When the drop came, she moved with surgical precision. Reached the ridge in under 40 minutes. Set up with a 10x optic, wind sensors, rangefinder, and 3 backup mags. She waited. At 1913 hours, the convoy rolled in. 6 vehicles. Heavily armored. Escorts on foot. She listened to comms. Navarro relaying ID confirms, Briggs prepping charges, Thorne breathing steadily. And then, take the shot. Evelyn didn't hesitate. Target 1, lead driver, eliminated before his head slumped forward. Target 2, rear lookout, fell before he could raise the alarm. Target 3, the buyer, stepping out of an SUV, center mass, clean. The convoy erupted in chaos. Evelyn adjusted. Moving targets. Smoke. Return fire. Didn't matter. She moved between scopes like a conductor leading a deadly symphony. By the time Thorne and Briggs reached the scene, half the enemy force was already down. No wasted ammo. No panic. Later, in debrief, Navarro whispered to Thorne, "She's not a shooter. She's a damn machine." Thorne didn't argue. He didn't praise either. Just handed her a data file the next morning. Next stop. You're in. That became her rhythm. Mission after mission. One in the Philippine jungles, where she picked off enemies through a monsoon storm. Another in Serbia, where she hit a moving motorcycle at over 1,000 yards. Each success made her more known and more resented. Some called her lucky. Others called her something worse. But the one name that stuck in classified circles was Echo. Because she left no sound behind. Just impact. Still, inside the unit, trust was harder to earn than medals. Briggs, despite his loud mouth, respected her first. "You ever smile?" he asked after she stitched his arm up post-mission, her hand steady even under fire. "Not often," she replied. He chuckled. "We'll fix that." Navarro took longer. He trailed her movements, tested her reaction times, fed her false intel to see how she'd respond. She passed every test. Eventually, he left a cup of coffee on her cot with a post-it, "You're good." And Thorne? He watched. Measured. Until one night in Syria, when everything went wrong. Their mission was to intercept a data handoff, nothing flashy, a simple snatch and extract in Aleppo's outskirts. But the source had been compromised. Ambush. Multiple tangos. Close quarters. Evelyn didn't have a long gun. She adapted. Took down 3 with a sidearm. Saved Thorne's life with a clean shot through a boarded window. They made it out, barely. Back at base, soaked in blood and dust, Thorne looked at her and said the words she never thought she'd hear. "Glad you were with us." She nodded. Nothing else needed to be said. Trust was earned in chaos. From then on, she wasn't the quiet one, or the girl who shoots. She was part of Viper 1. The next few months took them across 4 continents. Sudan, Afghanistan, the Balkans, Colombia. Each op tighter, dirtier, more dangerous. But Evelyn never slipped. She evolved. Started communicating more. Short, precise commands. Suggestions. Shift position. 2 tangos right. Winds changing. Wait 5. Don't move. Trap. Her presence became an anchor. A strange irony. The girl who couldn't fit in was now the one holding the team together. Until Sierra Leone. The mission was classified even to them. Orders came through encrypted, black site extraction. Minimal info. Hostile assets guarding HVT. Recover alive. They parachuted into the jungle at 0300. Humidity. Insects. Dense foliage. Within hours, Briggs triggered a trap. Explosives tore through the tree line. Briggs lost consciousness. Navarro took shrapnel. Thorne called it in, but comms were jammed. They were alone. Surrounded. That's when Evelyn took command. Thorne looked at her, blood trailing down his leg, and simply said, "You lead." She didn't hesitate. She set up a fallback perimeter, camouflaged their wounded, moved through terrain like she was born there. Hunted the hunters. Over the next 2 days, Evelyn eliminated over a dozen trackers. One by one. Using their own traps against them. By the 3rd night, they reached the black site. The HVT was alive. Barely. Evelyn carried him herself. 6 miles. Through heat. Through gunfire. Through pain. Extraction arrived at dawn. The team, bleeding, exhausted, alive, watched her board last, rifle in one hand, body slung over her back. Back at HQ, the mission was reviewed. The commander looked at the data, the kill logs, the injury reports, and finally said, "Who was leading?" Navarro answered. Echo. A week later, she was offered a promotion. Command track. She declined. "I don't lead with rank," she said. "I lead when I have to." That statement spread. Across bases. Across branches. Even across countries. But with reputation came scrutiny. An internal review team flagged her files. Too fast. Too flawless. The word anomaly kept showing up. Someone wasn't happy. And Evelyn noticed. Her next assignments became quieter. More isolated. Briefings thinned. She wasn't being cut, but she was being sidelined. Until the letter arrived. Hand-delivered. And signed. Just coordinates and one line, "They're coming for you." She didn't panic. She packed. Took her rifle, a burner phone, and vanished. Navarro was the only one she contacted. "Trust no one," she said. "I'll be in touch." And then, radio silence. Viper 1 disbanded. Officially, operational restructuring. Unofficially, no one knew where Evelyn went. Some said she was in Alaska, living off-grid. Others claimed she joined private contractors in Africa. One rumor said she was recruited by a covert agency so classified even the CIA didn't know its name. But the truth? She was watching. Waiting. Because whoever sent that letter knew what was coming. And so did Evelyn. She wasn't done. She was just getting started. She crossed the Canadian border on foot. No drones. No passport. Just wilderness, instinct, and memory guiding her. Evelyn stayed out of sight for 2 weeks, moving between remote cabins and derelict ranger stations. She caught her own food, melted snow for water, and listened, always listened. To air traffic. To encrypted radio waves. To the forest. It was almost like meditation, except every step carried weight. Every sound was a warning. Every shadow could mean a drone overhead or a tracker on foot. She didn't know who had turned on her. But someone with power had issued a silent kill order. And they wanted her gone without a trace. She needed answers. Fast. There was one man who could give her a start. Derek Lorne. A former intelligence analyst turned whistleblower, Lorne had vanished years ago after exposing a data laundering scheme inside a multinational private military firm. He was a ghost. But Evelyn remembered one small detail from a past mission briefing. Lorne used to transmit from a ham radio network on a specific mountain range in British Columbia. She climbed that mountain in 3 days. At the summit, a steel antenna poked through snow and rock. It was active. She tapped a code, an old NATO distress signal. Hours passed. Then a reply. Coordinates. A phrase. "Come alone." She found Lorne in a cave, bearded, emaciated, but very much alive. He looked at her through foggy glasses. "Didn't think they'd send you." "They didn't," Evelyn said. "I'm off the grid." Lorne didn't ask why. He knew better. They sat around a fire, and she told him everything, briefly, without names. The mission in Sierra Leone. The letter. The silence. He listened, nodding. Then he pulled out an old hard drive. "This is what they don't want you to find," he explained. During her time in Viper 1, Evelyn had unknowingly disrupted a black-tier arms network, one so entrenched it fed weapons not only to terrorist factions but also to rogue elements inside her own country's intelligence structure. The kill order on her had come from a shadow council that existed beyond oversight, former military brass, private contractors, and foreign backers. They called it Operation Harbinger, Lorne said. Designed to create chaos globally, conflicts they could control. You got too efficient, too visible. You were never meant to survive Sierra Leone. Evelyn's hands curled into fists. Names, she said. Lorne gave her 3. One was a colonel she'd once briefed under. One was a defense lobbyist with ties to over a dozen shell companies. And the last, a tech mogul turned intelligence contractor, known only by an alias, Marius. He handed her a burner drive. This is the evidence. Get it out, and everything changes. She stood. I'm not getting it out. Lorne blinked. Then what? I'm dismantling it, my way. She left before dawn. And the hunt began. She moved east through the Rockies, then down into the U.S. Midlands. First, she took out communications. Quietly. She disrupted servers, corrupted surveillance satellites, launched false signals. The council started to panic. They thought she'd gone rogue. She had. But not blindly. One by one, she tracked the 3 names. The colonel was first. He lived in Virginia, surrounded by layers of security, buried behind black SUVs and ex-Special Forces guards. Evelyn waited 2 weeks. Watched shift patterns. Studied weaknesses. Then, one rain-slick night, she breached the perimeter using nothing but wire cutters and her bare hands. Slipped into the estate like smoke. She found the colonel in his study, glass of scotch in hand, watching an old war movie. He turned. Froze. She didn't draw. Just showed the drive. He paled. You don't know what you're doing, he stammered. I know exactly, she said. You signed a death sentence. Mine. You're not Delta anymore, he spat. I never was, she said. But you always were a traitor. She left him alive, with a loaded gun and a file folder titled Confession. The next day, he turned himself in. Evelyn didn't stop. She went after the second name, the defense lobbyist. He was harder to find, harder to break, hidden behind multiple layers of business fronts. She found his weakness in his routine, private poker games on a yacht in the Gulf. She got herself on board using a forged invitation and a silencer. He never saw her coming. She didn't kill him either. But she left him disarmed, unconscious, and cuffed to his own vault with classified documents from his briefcase pinned to his chest. He was arrested before sunrise. The news called it a corruption sting. But behind closed doors, the council tightened its net. Which left Marius, the ghost behind the curtain, the one who had started it all. Evelyn found his data trail buried beneath 7 proxies, but it led to a server in Eastern Europe. She flew commercial, disguised. She landed in Bucharest, then drove east to a compound nestled in the Carpathians. No fences, just drones, satellites, hired mercs. She went in alone, by foot, through forest and fog, picked them off one by one. No gunfire, just silence, until she reached the server hub. There, surrounded by screens and biometric locks, was Marius. Young, sharp, smiling. I've been expecting you, he said. She raised her rifle. I know, she replied. But he didn't beg. He offered a deal. You can end this. You and I, we could reshape the world. Take the chaos, the corruption, and turn it into balance. Evelyn laughed once. Dry, cold. You don't want balance. You want obedience. I want results, he said. You can have anything. Everything. She lowered her rifle. Then activated the flash drive Lorne had given her. Virus code. Adaptive. Meant to destroy every file, every backup, every fingerprint of Operation Harbinger. Marius lunged. She stopped him with one movement. A punch to the throat. He fell gasping. The screens melted into static. The empire he'd built, erased in under 30 seconds. She leaned down. You offered me power. But I never wanted that. Then why? She stood. Because someone has to be the echo after the shot. And then she walked away. Didn't look back as the compound alarms screamed. Didn't stop moving until she crossed the border days later. When the council tried to regroup, they found themselves exposed. Their assets gone. Their secrets public. No one knew how. But the military quietly issued a statement. A single operator was instrumental in uncovering and dismantling a global threat. Her name will remain classified. Her actions will not. They thought Evelyn would return. To Delta. To the military. To some official rank. She didn't. She vanished. Back into the wild. Back into silence. But in conflict zones, rumors began to spread. Of a woman who ended wars before they began. A phantom with a rifle. No medals. No rank. Just one name whispered on encrypted comms and enemy radios alike. Echo. The years passed in fragments. No headlines. No medals. No gravestones. Just footprints in mud, bullet casings in the dust, and whispers that never reached the news. Evelyn had become a myth. To governments, she was a ghost protocol, a wild card to be neither contacted nor confronted. To warlords, mercs, and black site tycoons, she was the shadow on the scope. The breath before the strike. A walking reckoning that never announced itself. She didn't seek revenge anymore. She sought precision. In jungles, she dismantled child soldier camps without firing a shot. In cities, she infiltrated trade routes run by organ traffickers, replacing shipments with GPS tags and coordinates sent to Interpol. In villages where the weak were used as pawns, she left only silence and freedom in her wake. Still, even myths need rest. One spring, after 2 years off-grid, Evelyn crossed into a coastal village in southern Thailand. There, among the mangroves, she found a shack. A garden. A view of the sea. A silence that didn't feel like withdrawal, but peace. She stayed. Grew herbs. Read books. Mended nets for fishermen too old to row far. It was the first time in nearly a decade she allowed herself to sleep through the night. But legends, as they do, draw the desperate. It started with a knock. She opened the door to a teenage girl, thin, barefoot, eyes hollow with the kind of trauma Evelyn recognized too well. The girl didn't speak. She held out a folded photo. In it, a man. Western. Military cut. Cold eyes. Beside him, crates marked with an Eastern European weapons manufacturer's insignia. Below, a handwritten message. They took my brother. Evelyn nodded once. Didn't ask how the girl had found her. Didn't need to. The echo had reached even here. That night, Evelyn cleaned her old rifle. Polished the scope. Oiled every chamber, every spring. It felt like memory. Like ritual. Then she left, alone, as always. The trail led her through Laos, then into a province in Cambodia forgotten by diplomacy. There, she found a fortress masquerading as a logistics company, surrounded by barbed wire and roving guards. Inside, the man from the photo. A former PMC, now acting as middleman for a warlord pushing narcotics and guns through the region. He never saw her. She picked off his guards from the tree line, one by one. Silent. Clean. When she entered his office, he reached for a pistol. She didn't raise hers. She only slid a photo of the teenage girl across his desk. His hand trembled. He stammered, "She's just a refugee. What's she to you?" Evelyn leaned in. "She's the only reason you're breathing." He didn't sleep again after that night. His operation collapsed within weeks. Not from gunfire, but from fear. Because every time he heard a branch snap, every gust of wind, every glint on a rooftop, he wondered if Echo had returned. Back in the Thai village, Evelyn stayed for another season. The girl smiled again. Slowly. Laughed once. That was enough. But the world never stays still. In Geneva, a summit was planned, one that would broker peace in a region long torn by synthetic proxy wars. Intelligence agencies feared sabotage. So they activated a sleeper list, non-sanctioned operatives deemed deniable but effective. Evelyn's name was first. The message was burned before she even finished reading. She went anyway. In Europe, she moved between embassies like smoke. Picked up chatter. Tapped secure lines. She uncovered a plot, not just sabotage, but a coup disguised as a bombing. She found the device in a service tunnel beneath the summit chamber, minutes before detonation. Disarmed it. Alone. No witnesses. No record. Just silence. The summit went on. Treaties signed. Peace, a chance, finally. The leaders thanked their gods. Their luck. Their security staff. They never knew the truth. But one UN official received an unmarked package days later. Inside, the bomb trigger, a map, and a note. Protect what you signed. Or next time, no one stops it. No name. No fingerprints. Just a legend reinforced. Word spread. Quietly. In corridors of intelligence. Among commandos and covert units. Echo wasn't just a rumor. She was real. And she wasn't done. The world adapted. Some nations left encrypted messages in forest stashes and ghost mailboxes, pleas for help they hoped would find her. Sometimes she responded. Sometimes she didn't. No pattern. No allegiance. Only one consistency. She showed up where no one else could go. Where hope was threadbare and strategy futile. She became the ghost behind victories no one could explain. The knife behind the fall of cartels. The eye that spotted the warlord before the drone could. The whisper in a child soldier's ear that made him drop the rifle and run. Eventually, even her enemies stopped trying to kill her. They feared what it might unleash. But legends have limits. One day, Evelyn returned to the village in Thailand. She found the girl, now older, stronger, training in self-defense. Teaching others. That night, Evelyn stood on the shore, watching the tide. And she thought, for the first time in her life, maybe this was enough. Then the storm came. Not rain. Not thunder. Men. Armed. Masked. Professional. They came for the girl. And Evelyn, of course. It was an extraction order, issued by someone high, buried in a faction she'd once exposed. They thought she'd grown soft. They were wrong. She led them into the jungle. And dismantled them one by one. Left their leader tied to a tree with a message carved into his vest. Echo lives. But afterward, Evelyn didn't return to the village. She didn't say goodbye. She vanished again. Because she knew peace was not for people like her. Not yet. Evelyn drifted between countries like mist. She didn't leave traces anymore. No footprints, no shadows, just ripples. In northern Syria, she crossed into villages under siege, coordinating evacuations while armed with only a backpack and a penlight. In Bogota, she hacked a narco-communications tower and routed its feed straight to international task forces, breaking open an empire. In Ukraine, she served briefly under an alias, helping a resistance unit reverse engineer an enemy jamming device. Her fix: chalk, copper wire, and a snapped-off antenna. She vanished before the commander could ask her name. But they remembered her. They all did. Soon, she became more than myth. She became motivation. Posters of a silhouetted woman, a rifle slung across her back, began to surface in underground bunkers, safe houses, and digital forums. She had no face. No flag. Just a call sign written in fading ink. Echo. And beneath it, one shot. One voice. One purpose. But Evelyn didn't see any of this. She didn't care. She was deep in the Congo Basin now, embedded with an NGO trying to prevent the poisoning of indigenous water sources by illegal mines. The mercenaries guarding the operation were ex-Foreign Legion, brutal and efficient. Until their payroll vanished. Until their vehicles stopped working, fuel replaced with river water. Until they began finding messages in the dark. This land is not yours. They left. No blood. No firefight. Just fear. Just echo. But the world was growing more complex. AI surveillance. Biometric grids. Drones that could see through walls. Evelyn adapted. She learned. Upgraded. Built her own systems. Scavenged from black markets and broken satellites. She wasn't just a sniper anymore. She was a network. A node. A living answer to the question. What if the system failed, and one person refused to? Governments changed hands. Empires crumbled. She stayed the same. Until she didn't. One winter, in a bombed-out orphanage in Georgia, she found a boy. 7. Starving. Alone. But not crying. He had drawn her symbol on the wall. She knelt beside him. "Where did you see that?" she asked softly. He pointed to the sky. "A drone. It had her on it." And then she knew. They were using her. Somewhere, someone had taken the myth and turned it into marketing. A Black Ops unit, likely Western-funded, had begun branding their operations with her image, scaring villages into submission by pretending she had aligned with them. She tracked them. It took 3 months. She infiltrated their safe house in Bucharest. Inside, a data wall of everything she'd done. Every unclaimed op. Every unexplained success. They called her Project Revenant. They'd even recruited young operatives trained to mimic her tactics. She deleted the entire database. Then, before leaving, she carved 2 words into the mainframe. "Not yours." She leaked the intel to multiple watchdog groups and exposed the unit on the dark web. Within days, international scrutiny forced it to dissolve. But it changed her. For the first time, Evelyn realized the danger of her myth. Not to herself, but to those who believed it too literally. She needed to vanish again, but not by fading. By ending. She made a decision. She staged her own death. In rural Nepal, an avalanche was reported after a freak drone strike collided with a signal tower. No survivors. No bodies. But among the debris, they found a shattered rifle and a locket containing 2 initials, EK. News outlets speculated. Forums mourned. Governments quietly celebrated. And just like that, Echo was gone. But not quite. Because in the months that followed, small miracles occurred. A kidnapped journalist reappeared on the Libyan coast, her bindings cut and a compass left on her chest. A warlord in Myanmar fled to Moscow after his weapons stash exploded. No one claimed responsibility. And in South Sudan, a convoy of medical supplies arrived one night, completely guarded by a single figure who never spoke, then vanished at sunrise. She was gone. But she wasn't done. She never would be. Evelyn had become more than a woman. More than a soldier. She was now a principal. A ghost of justice. A sniper of silence. And somewhere, out there, when the last light fades, when the last radio call is ignored, when the final shot matters more than 1,000 speeches, that's where she'll be. Watching. Waiting. Ready. Because Delta Force may have rejected her. But the world made her.